I'm John Miglosh for the Wisconsin DMA and the International Society for Strategic Marketing. Let's dive in. A lot to cover today. Here we go. First, something light. A new spot by Gerber.
Gerber Natural. What baby sees is what baby gets. Whether they're an apple aficionado, spinach supporter, or kale blazer, here's to natural fruits and veggies that are delicious and nutritious. Go for what's natural. Gerber.
Anything for baby. Okay, good. That was good. Okay, now let's get over to the PDF world. And we're in a little bit of the wrong tab, but we'll fix that. Okay, so first of all, I ran across this article, which I thought was interesting, that the Bobblehead Museum, which is in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, was in a bit of crisis. Why? Well, because bobbleheads traditionally have been about sports figures, right? And there wasn't any sports going on. The sports teams will buy a whole collection of bobbleheads for giving away at the baseball game. Come and get your bobbleheads. So you get, you sell a couple of thousand right off the bat. So what are they doing? Well, they found out that they could make bobbleheads of the celebrities from the coronavirus crisis. And so the Dr. Tony Fauci has raised $160,000, $25 a piece, for the Fauci bobblehead, who Fauci was testifying before Congress, probably telling us that we better never open up our economies because somebody might get sick. But I didn't hear it, so I don't know what he's going to say. But he's been saying that for basically once he switched from saying it's no big deal and there's no communicability, once he got off that horse, started predicting that unless we shut down, 2 million people will die, and then went all in on that. So God bless him. He got us to do what we did, and we'll see whether that was the biggest mistake in human history or not. But you can get a bobblehead of Tony Fauci and governors, including our governor, Tony Evers. I hope Tony enjoys his celebrity status and shuts down the shutdown, because mostly people are ignoring it anyway. Resistance and change. I did look at the Google stats, and we're up from a low of 50%, non-travel, non-going out of our house. So we went down from normal to 50% less. Now we're up to about a third, 33%. So it's, we're coming back. We're coming back, like it or not. Okay, so here is Tom Fishburne. Oh, got a lot of hearts on that one. Tom Fishburne. Being resilient requires change. We have to try new things, learn new skills, get out of our comfort zone. We can't be afraid to fail at first. He's doing his kid's hair. That was a good cartoon, Tom. I got to say, that was one of your better ones. Especially if you roll it up, and I botched that up a little bit, but I hope you guys enjoyed it. Okay, but as always, Tom's commentary on his cartoon is better than his cartoon, because he's a very thoughtful guy. How do we manage a relatively slow-changing organization in rapidly changing technological environment? This was from a couple of weeks ago. We're years away from digital transformation. I don't see our company having to change anytime soon. I mean, I had a friend of mine was president of Blue Cross Blue Shield Wisconsin, and he never learned to do email. He never learned to type on a keyboard, and he just didn't. And he made it through. But I said, Ed, you might want to learn some of this. Nope, didn't want to. Okay, so we now live in a world of perpetual change. We're never going to be fully caught up ever again. That's one of the things I learned back in the software days. I became a total expert at Lotus 123. And there was no PowerPoint in those days, and so I actually made graphs with lines going up, and I would set the words as titles on the graph so that they would kind of hover in space, and I would remove the lines so they were invisible. And that's how I built my slides. And I did and then I had macros that I just hit, like Alt A, and the slideshow would start, and then I'd hit some other key, and we'd go to the next slide, and the next slide, and the next slide. I built all these programs in Lotus 123, and then they changed the interface, and none of my macros worked anymore. And I realized that you're never going to be an expert in the software because they're going to change it, And I got pretty good at Word and pretty good at Excel, and then they changed all the menus. So I decided I'm only going to learn what I need to know at the time, and I'm going to figure it out. And now I use OpenOffice, basically, LibreOffice. Okay, so this current situation has brought up my own resistance to change. Keynote speaking at large events. He said, I got new gear, new lighting, new software. Speaking alone in a studio to a camera instead of a live audience was the hard part. It is hard. And my wife says I needed 5 takes just to record a voicemail message. So keep getting comfortable being uncomfortable. That's what this is about. This is part of why I did it. And this was his, in 2010, he left his corporate job, which was a good job, and said, this was the cartoon he did that week. What if I fail? What if it's a crazy idea? What if I'm not ready? What if I should test it again? What if, hey, where'd the runway go? Exactly. That's kind of life. There is no safe life. Okay? There is risk and there is reward. And if I were a retailer right now, I'd be open. And if you arrest me, I'd open it again the next day. And I'd get more news coverage. And I'd do it every day. Because there's no reward with no risk. Is there risk? Yes. Is there risk of staying home? Absolutely. Is there risk of going out? Yes. It's not a question of zero risk. It's not a question of safety. It's a question of what are you going to get done? How are you going to make a contribution in this world? And sitting at home is going to make it a lot harder. Okay, so we talked about Friday what to do when marketing budgets are limited, how to make changes in a big organization, how do we get over the bubble of .com advertising where we actually have zero attribution. And what we have, if you hire the fancy omnichannel attribution companies, is probably fraud or close to it. I covered that, and if you haven't gotten this article, excellent, one of the best articles ever, from The Correspondent, which I believe is a French publication, you really should write me. One person did, and I sent them the marked up version. I have a lot of marks on this thing. I'll save that one right there. And it's excellent. But let's go on and try to figure out what we should do next, right? So here we go. How do we know in marketing? What do we know and how can we know it? Let's get that bigger. Bigger, bigger. It's hard to get bigger. I know there's a way because I had it fitting perfectly a while ago, but now it's not. Now no matter what I do, it's not. Which is kind of weird. This stuff is just plain weird. I got to tell you. I got to tell you. But we're going to do our best. Okay, so how do we know in marketing? There's a war between art and science. There's a war between the fiction of advertising and the science of advertising. If you've heard of scientificadvertising.com, go there, get the book. It's a 100-year-old book that'll tell you what's proven and what isn't. Okay? There's a knowledge process. Most of what we know is not explicit knowledge. Explicit knowledge is the stuff of data, information, provable stuff, documents, records, files. Most is inferential. Experience, thought, competence, commitment. And there's an old saying that where heart meets head, heart will win. Absolutely true. In business, it's no different. There's the explicit, the told, and the known, and the untold, the believed implicitly, and the felt, tactile, tacit, right? And that raises some issues. Because we've been promised big data. We've been promised web analytics. We've been promised AI, and almost none of it works. It would appear, Hopkins, that your gut feel was only indigestion. This is the graph going down like that, you see. So there's this war. There's this war in decision-making between data, art, science. And there's a couple of problems. One problem, as I've pointed out many times, is all data is historical. No matter how real-time you talk about, it's still in the past. It still is not in the future. You can't guarantee the future from the past, which we learned in January, right? Who would have thought our entire economy would be shut down, going down like 30% GDP or some crazy number? We don't even know what the number is for second quarter, which is why I say we've got to change. We've got to take risk because we know now that there are consequences to this. Government always underestimates unforeseen consequences. It's just a rule of law, I would say. That's why we have government, to adjust for the mistakes of the past. We always overcompensate. So the only hope is get out there and open your shops and let us know you're open. Okay? Big data yields real evidence, but the problem is context is more important. Context is more important than the data. Past doesn't predict the future. Well, it kind of does. Some level. I do it all the time. I've made a fortune, not for me, but for my clients. Millions and millions of dollars using the past to predict the future. But there's no guarantees. The future will be like, what I always said, tomorrow will be like yesterday, except if it isn't. So GM hired me to come in, and they said, we want to know who would have bought a car without us giving them $5,000 back on their credit card. And I said, well, what answer would you like? And they said, wait a minute, we thought you were a data guy. And I said, I am, but I bet you didn't set it up right. You didn't have a real test. So to the authors of the data.com bubble, there is an answer. Okay? There's creative testing, there's offer testing, there's list testing, market testing. But you have to vary the way it's portrayed. You have to have a control group. Now, I have to say that in a crisis, when the plane is going down, it's not the time to do a study. It's time to make changes. It's time to pull up the nose, or in a helicopter, push down the nose. Depends. Interestingly, right? One of the things that bothers me about the coronavirus treatment response is there are promising treatments, but the big, perhaps paid by pharmacy companies, the big media and big pharma spokespeople say, well, it hasn't been thoroughly tested. True. But we want to save lives. It's better to test something different than to watch people die. And that same thing is true in marketing. So first, it starts with observation. We observe that these people died, these people didn't die. Oh, there's comorbidity. Oh, there's low vitamin D. Oh, there's factors. Let's look at the factors. Let's look and see if people who have rheumatoid arthritis, why don't they get it? It's one of the questions. We observed that. Part of the answer was they were on hydrochloroquine. I just heard a doctor yesterday say he's treated 24 people. They all recovered. They all did well. But if you wait till they're on a respirator, they're dead. I watched another doctor from University of Wisconsin-Madison who said, we changed from the respirator therapy to oxygen. We changed to steroids, which have been proven effective in the past. So the past can help. That's not everything. Okay, so list, offer, copy. Change one thing. It's possible to know something. Okay, here's a project I did. This was the catalog for Deluxe Business Systems. It says Deluxe Business Forms and Supplies Catalog. But we all knew Deluxe from getting our checks printed. At the time, they were about the only check printer in the country. They were the main one that every bank kind of used. I said, are you ashamed of your name? Why is it down here in, fine print, not in color? you're doing a color cover, but this sounds like high quality business forms. Anybody could put that on their catalog. And so we changed it to that. We made them a huge amount of money. Plus, I repaginated it and made them $160,000 just in printing costs. Okay? But this had about double the profit per piece of this one, because people got what was going on. So the scientific method starts with observation, then hypothesis. So if you notice that people with rheumatoid arthritis aren't getting it, aren't dying, why? Even though they're old. Maybe it's because they're on something. That's how they actually have been scanning the records of insurance companies, knowing what people had as a sickness, knowing their prescriptions, and comparing that to the number who died of coronavirus. Then they run an experiment. Let's try these. Let's try these things that seem to be working, the steroids and the hydrochloroquine. Then you test, then you experiment. That may take a while. Can't help it, right? Then you get an explanation and you retest, and it goes on for a long time. It takes time. But over time, you get a theory. You get a theory that inflammation might be the culprit. Maybe we need to fight the inflammation. Maybe we need to treat the blood disease, which is what hydrochloroquine claims. It treats the iron ion that the coronavirus detaches. The iron goes to your lungs, causes inflammation, kills you. That's a theory. Let's go on. Deluxe check. Introducing a way to collect monthly payments. What does a way to collect means? Nothing. Introducing a way to collect monthly payments. I changed introducing a money-saving way to collect monthly payments. 25% improvement. Here's the inside. Where's the 800 number? Where's the response device? What's the deal? I added this free information packet. There's an offer. Here's an 800 number, nice and big. As low as $1.47 per book. You get a whole booklet for each of your renters. Customized for each unit. Guaranteed satisfaction. 20% lift. Okay, here's a good one. Cover design. I used to give this catalog out, and people would say, hey, why would I want a Miller hat? Here was the original over here. Pontiac hat, J.I. Case tractor. You know, we had these kind of things on the cover because we had big name brand clients, not little 1-hour Martinizing or gas stations. But people weren't getting it. So we did a very similar catalog where we put your imprint here, your imprint here. See that? Your logo. Custom embroidery. Guess what? My goodness. It was a 40% lift. Just changing the cover. And no words. All of this is identical. Right? We were telling them what it was. All of this is identical. All the items are identical. Only change the imprints on the items. 40% revenue per piece improvement. And the inside of the catalog was identical. The back was identical. 40% lift. Why? Because the observation was they weren't getting it. They said, why do I want a Pontiac hat? No, this is for your business. You put your own logo on it. Oh. Light went on. Oh, yeah, we use that stuff. Okay, here, have a catalog. After about a dozen of those, I said, people aren't getting it. And we changed the cover. And it turned the company around, made millions. Pet edge, we're going to skip. Okay, so the scientific method is observation. And most, today, in many, many high school textbooks, it skips this part. You need curiosity. Businesses are built on discovery and new ideas. And when you get those kinds of test results, you change a business. Okay, so we ran 3 tests: holiday, winter, and spring. So spring was all, I think it landed March 1st. All post-coronavirus catastrophe, right? Revenue per piece went up, I'm trying to remember, 153%, 199%, 165%. 3 tests. 6-figure mailing pieces. I'd say that's pretty good. You want to change your organization? You want to make money with data? You want to be data driven? You want to change your valuation? Show that to the bank. Explain how you do it. There's a long, old story about a guy who was trying to raise money to build another casino. He had one, I think, and he wanted to build a second one. And he went to the bankers, and they said, how can we loan you money based on games of chance? Isn't it kind of a roll of dice whether you win or lose? He said, one roll, yes. 1,000 rolls, the house always wins. Bankers want certainty. You need money? You need to go talk to your bank? You need to explain to them why your business is viable? Do what you say what you do. I've changed the valuation for 15 companies, made them millions in selling their businesses. Want to find out how? Write me. I'll give you that digital article with my markups. Okay? You vary the offer, the price, the discount, the terms. And this was Lovesac, where we'll just skip to it. One of my more recent ones, but not as recent as those other tests I mentioned. And I thought I eliminated most of these slides, but they're still in here. Here's holdout. We did a 300% ROI, and here's the growth. Okay, it was going along, growing a little bit every year, but when we finally put the magic together, we taught the marketing department how to tell what's making money. It just launched, right? It just launched. So 100% growth in 3 years, pretty good, I would say, right? Now they're public, so you can find that information. Everything is public. And they said, John, you taught us so much. Changed their valuation. They went public, made millions. Okay, takeaways. Companies are willing to spend millions on order processing and big data, but little on testing. Testing is the key to seeing context and meaning, testing with an objective to take action. We magnify and amplify testing with our machine learning. Always test something. Testing is learning. Testing makes you money. Each media has strengths and weaknesses. We can tell you which media makes a difference. Stop one for a while. Stop one to keep people. I hope you got something out of this. There is an answer. You can know for sure. I'm John Miglosh. Like and share. Your friends will think you're smart. Have a great day. Bye-bye.